The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Look, I rise to support this bill. The Auckland Council itself has stated that the power for local boards to delegate enables them to operate efficiently and effectively. Legislation rather than regulation is required to give effect to this and provide certainty for Auckland Council and its local boards. The regulations were enacted to meet the timeframe for constitution of local boards on 1st November 2010, and you'll recall that, Mr Speaker. And this interim measure allowed time for better understanding of local board operations to develop, which could then be developed into amending legislation. I think all members recall that reforming Auckland local government was recommended by the Royal Commission to Auckland governance, and at that time, of course, the Labour Party called the Royal Commission because they weren't actually prepared to move on anything. Those were the heady days when the Labour Party would call committees, and then they'd call an inquiry, and then they'd get someone else to head up some sort of investigation, and then they'd pass it on to the Auditor General, and decisions just weren't made. They were sort of kicked off to inquiries and kicked off to committees and kicked off to judges and all sorts of eminent people. But actually acting and doing something was not taken up. So New Zealand sort of stagnated because decisions weren't being made. Anyway, the Royal Commission came back, and thank goodness we were in government, and we took those recommendations and we put them into place. I think the Labour Party possibly would have had an inquiry into a committee to look at what the Royal Commission said. So rather than have another committee and another inquiry and another investigation onto the Royal Commission, we decided to act, and of course this legislation is part of putting those recommendations into actual operation. And ratepayers need to know the Council is spending money wisely. These reforms are part of that also to introduce transparency. So I happily recommend this to the House, and I trust that New Zealanders prefer action rather than more inquiries, more committees, more investigations, which the Labour Party tends to have, rather than decision-making.
I call Carol Beaumont.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. I rise to speak on the local government